I never wanted to cheer for him. In fact, if life had a cruel sense of humor, it was the way I ended up running a fan club for the very boy I swore I couldn't stand. And the worst part? He looks at me now like I'm the only one in the crowd who matters. His name is Evan Callahan, the golden boy of Westbrook University. Star basketball player, top of his class, the kind of guy everyone wants to be or be with. My name is Daniel Lee. Nobody really. I sit in the back of lecture halls, scribble notes for my creative writing classes, and keep my head down. The last thing I ever planned was to get tangled in Evan's orbit, let alone become someone he thinks is his biggest supporter. Started with a joke. My best friend, Mia, nudged me one afternoon in the campus cafe, pointing at a flyer with Evan's smug face plastered across it. "You hate him so much, you should start a fan club," she teased. I rolled my eyes, but somehow, later that night, half out of sarcasm and half out of boredom, I made a simple online group, Evan Callahan Appreciation Society. I thought maybe 3 people would join, tops. By morning, there were hundreds. First, it was funny. Ridiculous, even. People were posting photos of him mid-game, sharing clips of his interviews, writing long posts about how inspiring he was. And because I was the admin, the founder, everyone assumed I was his #1 fan. By the time Evan himself found out about it, the thing had already taken a life of its own. I'll never forget the way he looked at me when he approached me in the library. I was in my usual corner, surrounded by books, when his tall shadow fell across my desk. I looked up, and there he was, sweat still clinging to his neck from practice, strands of damp hair sticking to his forehead. "You're Daniel, right?" His voice was low, a mix of curiosity and something unreadable. I swallowed hard. Yeah. "You're the guy who started my fan club?" His mouth curved into a smile that was equal parts infuriating and devastatingly charming. I wanted to deny it, to tell him it was a misunderstanding, a mistake, a stupid dare. But my throat betrayed me. "I guess so." Instead of laughing at me, instead of calling me out for being a fraud, he leaned closer, lowering his voice until only I could hear. "Thanks. It means more than you know." And just like that, my world tilted. Because beneath his flawless surface, there was something in his eyes, something fragile, almost desperate. It wasn't the look of a boy who had everything. It was the look of someone who needed to believe someone was truly on his side. And for reasons I couldn't explain, I couldn't bring myself to shatter that illusion. From then on, Evan sought me out. In the cafeteria, he'd sit at my table. Between classes, he'd walk with me. During games, his gaze would find mine in the stands, always steady, always searching, like he was making sure I was there. People whispered, rumors spread, but I couldn't shake the feeling that behind his teasing smirks and casual remarks, Evan was clinging to me in ways I didn't understand. The truth was, I still resented him. He was everything I wasn't: popular, fearless, adored. And yet, when I watched him laugh with teammates, when I saw how his shoulders slumped the moment no one else was looking, something inside me cracked. One night, after a game, he caught me lingering by the bleachers, clutching my notebook. He was still in uniform, jersey clinging to his frame, and the stadium lights washed over him like he belonged to another world. "You didn't leave," he said softly. I shrugged. "I was writing." He tilted his head, studying me. Then, in a voice so quiet I almost missed it, he confessed, "Sometimes, I feel like everyone likes me for what I can do, the points I score, the image I keep. But you look at me differently." My chest tightened. I wanted to scream that he was wrong, that I didn't look at him with admiration. I looked at him with bitterness, jealousy, and confusion. But the words tangled in my throat. Maybe because, deep down, he was right. I did see him differently, and that terrified me more than anything else. That night, when I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I replayed his words again and again. Why me? Why was Evan the boy I thought I hated confiding in me like I was the only one who mattered? The line between rivalry and something else blurred dangerously fast. Every time he smiled at me, every time his hand brushed mine, I felt myself slipping. And yet, I couldn't forget the truth. Our bond was built on a lie. He thought I was his biggest fan. his most loyal supporter. But the reality was, I had started that fan club as a joke. If he ever found out, I'd lose him. The storm came sooner than I expected. One afternoon, during a crowded study session at the student union, Mia, who had grown tired of watching me wrestle with my feelings, let the secret slip. She laughed too loudly, telling a group of friends how Daniel only made that stupid fan club to mock Evan in the first place. The silence that followed was suffocating. And when I turned, Evan was standing there, his face unreadable, his eyes locked on mine. The world spun out from under me. The silence felt like a blade pressed against my throat. Evan's eyes burned into me, searching for an explanation I couldn't find fast enough. It was a joke? His voice was steady, but there was a tremor beneath it, the kind that comes before something breaks. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. My friends shifted awkwardly, some pretending to study, others pretending not to listen, though everyone could feel the tension crackling in the air. Finally, Evan gave a tight smile, the kind that wasn't really a smile at all. Guess I should have known better. He turned, his broad shoulders stiff, and walked out of the room without another word. My chest collapsed in on itself. For days he avoided me. He sat at the far end of the cafeteria, looked past me in lectures, left practice without glancing my way. It was like being erased from his world piece by piece, and I hated how much it hurt, because I realized something I hadn't dared admit until then. It wasn't just guilt that gnawed at me. It was longing. I missed his eyes finding mine in a crowd. I missed the way his laughter softened when it was just the two of us. I missed the warmth that bloomed in my chest every time he leaned closer, as if the space between us didn't exist. Without him, everything felt colder. I told myself to let it go. He deserved the truth and he deserved to walk away. But the thought of him believing I never cared it was unbearable. So one night, I did the only thing I knew how to do. I wrote. I filled page after page with words I had never spoken aloud. About how the fan club began as a joke, yes, but how quickly it became something real. About how I had watched him not with envy, but with awe. About how somewhere between rivalry and sarcasm, I had fallen quietly, desperately for him. The next morning, I slipped the folded pages into his locker. I didn't expect forgiveness. I didn't expect anything. But at least he would know the truth. That evening, as the last light of day bled into the horizon, I heard a knock on my dorm room door. When I opened it, Evan stood there, holding my letter in his hand. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes, those stormy, searching eyes, were locked on mine. You really wrote all this? His voice was rough, low. I nodded, throat tight. Every word. He stepped inside without asking, shutting the door behind him. For a long moment, he just stared at me, as if weighing the words against the boy standing in front of him. Then, finally, he exhaled. You're an idiot, he muttered. I flinched, but before I could respond, he took a step closer. Do you know what it felt like? Thinking someone actually saw Menet the player. Not the golden boy, but me, then finding out it was all a joke. His voice cracked on the last word. Tears burned behind my eyes. I never meant to hurt you. It was stupid. Started as nothing, but then, you changed it. You changed me. And I didn't know how to tell you. His jaw tightened, but his gaze softened, just barely. You wrote that I matter to you. You do, I whispered. More than I can explain. For a heartbeat, the room was silent, heavy with all the words we hadn't said. Then Evan closed the space between us in one stride. His hand cupped the back of my neck, firm but trembling, and before I could think, his lips crashed against mine. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't careful. It was raw, messy, desperate, the kind of kiss that came from weeks of silence, from anger and longing tangled together. And God, I kissed him back like I had been starving. When we finally broke apart, his forehead rested against mine, both of us breathing hard. You drive me insane, he whispered. But I don't care. I don't want anyone else looking at me the way you do. I let out a shaky laugh, tears spilling down my cheeks. I don't deserve you. Maybe not, he said with a crooked grin. But you're stuck with me anyway. After that night, things weren't magically perfect. People still whispered, some mocked, some judged. But when Evan reached for my hand in public calm, unapologetic, I realized none of it mattered. Because what we had wasn't built on the Fanclub anymore. It wasn't built on rivalry or lies. It was built on every stolen glance, every painful silence, every truth we had dragged into the light. Weeks later, at his final game of the season, the stands thundered with cheers. But when Evan scored the winning shot and the crowd erupted, his eyes searched through the sea of faces until they found mine. And in that moment, I knew no matter how the story began, no matter how twisted and ridiculous its roots were, I wasn't just his fan. I was his, and he was mine. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.